So let's talk about
Yeah.
story. Let's talk about story. How do you approach crafting a story for audio podcasting?
There's a lot of different things that you can pull from with that. Fortunately for me, I take it from a literary standpoint because I mentioned I was a teacher in the beginning. And so my formal background has been in language arts, which is essentially reading, writing. And so I'm just like a class or two shy of my master's in language arts and education. And I spent a good 7-8 years of my life teaching people about story. And so I lean more, there's a couple things I go towards. One doesn't really have anything to do with story. Normally when I start any project with a client, it's what is your goal? So like you said, whether it's like, what is the thing you want to be famous for? What is the book that you're writing kind of hypothetically or whatever? What is it you want to be known for? All these things. But what does this piece of content need to accomplish? And then from there, who are we talking to and what do they care about? And so taking more notes from like conversion copywriting. And when you go and you actually, instead of waking up one day and being like, oh, I got this great idea for an article. And then you spend 3.5 hours typing the article and editing it. And then you hit publish and you're like, why is no one going to my article? And it's because you never did any research to begin with. And so actually looking at things like Amazon reviews, searching Quora, finding what people are already having problems with, what they're looking for, what they're already asking, and then addressing those things. And so we'll take those things into consideration out of the gate. Once that foundation's laid, we start looking at the actual story. It just depends because sometimes people, all these things, it's usually workload. It's always resources. So it's always time and money. Like how much time and money are you willing to dump into this? Narratives are incredibly difficult to pull off well, to actually put the time into it that's necessary to do it. And so you got to find out what's interesting. There's a fantastic book I'll recommend. There's a lot of books I've read on this topic in particular, but one I really, really, really like is Out on a Wire. It's by Jessica Abel. And she basically documents I didn't realize it was a graphic novel when I picked it up, but it's a graphic novel that she illustrated. And she documents following around like people like Alex Bloomberg, Roman Mars, Ira Glass, and like all the journalist legends and how they work and their shows work and Snap Judgment and how they'll like sit in a room and hash it out forever. And so that's really, really fascinating to kind of see. And I think the last thing that I would add in that sort of rounds it out is just story's pretty universal. And you take something like Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces, and almost every story follows some variant of the protagonist and who's the hero and what's the challenge that they're facing. And they got to go into the dark or they got to go into the cave, and it kind of follows through this thing. And so it's like a mixture of what's the storyline and the story arc? Why is the story interesting at all? What are those like intersections that it's not just like, I think one example I heard before, it was on a Creative Live special that Alex Bloomberg did. And he was talking about how everybody wants a superpower. That's not interesting. But why is it that we want superpowers and we usually don't want to use them to actually do good things? We just want to fly around, or we want to peek on people with our invisibility or whatever it is. And so it's like, that's the interesting part. It's not so much that we want a superpower. It's that we never really do anything super with it. We just use it selfishly. And so it's like looking at a story with a lens to find the stuff that actually grabs your attention.